Hey everybody, it's Matthew. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be reacting to the Rolling Stone 200 Greatest Singers of All Time list. Let's see what horrible things Rolling Stone has once again unleashed upon the earth. How badly did they screw this up? Well, we're going to see right now. I'm a little bit late to this because this came out on January 1st of this year. And I meant to react to it a little bit sooner, but we're here doing it. I have seen like the first 60 or so singers on this list. So most of this is going to be cut out because we're not going to look at every single one because that would be an insane amount of footage. But I will stop on ones that I feel are noteworthy to talk about. Okay, we have actually something to talk about very early. Rosalia, that one's fine. You know, there's not much to say there, I don't think. And then Glenn Danzig at 199, just because he does a super weird, interesting thing with, you know, the Misfits and all that stuff in his solo things. A very odd, strange voice to have him here is like next to Rosalia. It looks super weird. I mean, I guess it's fair. There's not a lot of hardcore punk singers, you know, so I guess they got to put one on here, and they put an interesting one. Billy 198 is kind of weird to me. Would I put her higher? I don't know, honestly. I may not put her on a singers list like this. I'm not really sure. Kind of a torn one. 198. I mean, I feel like she had been around long enough for you to be really putting her on a list like this. I think this one is like, I think this is bad. 194. I think Kelly should be higher than that. I mean, you know, the first American Idol winner, that does matter a little bit in my mind. I mean, she's a fantastic pop singer and just a really good singer generally. I mean, being one of the most successful pop singers, I think you maybe should get a little bit of more of a nod than that, you know. If we look at Joan Baez here, through folk and things like that, she's an interesting one. Would I put her on a top 200 singers list? I don't know. She's on here because she's interesting and she's a good storyteller, not necessarily because she's a, you know, great singer or anything like that. We'll get into more about those things a little bit later in the video here. Okay, you know, Lana Del Rey here. This one's a little weird to me. I mean, she's super odd. She's gotten really popular as of late, obviously, but I mean, her voice is a really particular thing, particular emotional thing. She's more of a performer, really, than a singer. She's performing a vocal, but she's not really, you know, that talented of a singer, at least in my opinion. I mean, she does a thing that's cool and does it really well, and, you know, people respond to that. I don't know if she's a top 200, though. Okay, we skipped ahead a bit here because I have to talk about this one. Ronnie James Dio at 165, I think, is terrible. They should be ashamed for putting him this low on a 200 singers list. Now, look, I know he doesn't have the notoriety of some other guys that do the classic metal type of thing here that he does, but I mean, I think he does it the best out of anybody that you're going to see. So it's like, why is he at 165 when I don't know if there is a rock singer that has better power and endurance than he does for doing what he does up in his mixed voice. That's incredibly hard, incredibly taxing to do, and yet he did it nights in a row, performing live, never missing a note. And there's a lot to be said to be able to do that. I mean, there are guys that we talk about all the time that can't do that the way he did. And yet he's way down here. Now, granted, and Rob Halford's not quite the same thing. They're different. Rob Halford's got more range, but he doesn't have the raw power and the endurance like Ronnie does. There isn't anybody else that does. If you just watch him perform Rainbow in the Dark once, you're going to understand what the deal is with this. But 165, terrible. Carrie Underwood's interesting. She's like country Kelly Clarkson, but I'm just pointing this out real quick. She's at 158. So why is Kelly all the way at 194? Like, huh? That's weird. What's the deal with that? Why is she getting shortchanged? And now, of course, you know, like George is a good storyteller. I do like a lot of his songs and things like that. But I mean, again, he's just mostly a storyteller, and his voice is pleasant to listen to, but he's not, you know, the most talented thing you're going to hear. So why is he at 156 and then Chris Stapleton is all the way back at 170 when Chris is clearly a better singer than George Strait is? Man, this is some stuff they're pulling here, you know. Okay, pop in Bono. There's not much I can say here. I just would put him on this list. That's really all I can say. He's fine. He sings well, but there are a lot of people that do the same kind of thing he does better, and he's at 140. Could have put someone else in here. You could have just left him out. I really don't think that's a great singer to put on this list. Jeff at 131. I mean, I really like Jeff Buckley and he's super talented. I think this one's pretty fair though, because his career was super short and no one really knew him that well. So it's like, that's a fair place. Because if he did have a full career, obviously he'd be way higher, but you know, I think this is a completely fair spot for him. And yet we have Courtney Love one spot above him. It's kind of weird. I mean, she's better, I think, than you might have thought she was, but I don't think I would have put her here. There were other female vocalists in this space that I think could easily take her place here. And then what we talk about with Rob before, you know, Rob just being iconic with metal vocals, I think is enough to put him higher on this list. And again, what we talk about with his range, it's completely ridiculous. And the way this guy can scream, even at 70 now, or over 70, like, there's not a lot of singers performing that. There aren't singers performing that style of music at that age. What am I talking about? What? And he's only at 129. Because it's Judas Priest and the mass media seems to not really care about metal at all. Okay, this is a cop-out, guys. Why? Nobody knew him for his singing. I mean, he was a decent singer, but it's also the only recordings you have of his vocals are from the 30s. They're not good recordings. So it's really hard to gauge that. Why is he on here? Well, I think John Fogerty's on here just because he writes good songs. I don't know that I mean, he's a good singer. You know, he knows how to sing. He does it fine. But at 118, when there are people that do better, that are below him, a lot of people below him that could fit in here. I mean, you could put him on here just because it's Credence, but you know, 118's high. Weekend at 110, I think is. Are we getting ahead of ourselves on here? I'm not sure. I mean, he's not the most impressive thing. You know, I honestly think sometimes he's better live than his recordings would lead you to believe. Because he sounds like he has less power on his recordings than he actually does. But as thing I would like to say, I mean, he's the most successful artist of his type currently. Like, over the guy's got, like, how many streams? I mean, his top 5 is like 6 billion streams or something like that. So it's pretty insane what he does. And I mean, you could put him on here just for that level of success, but at 110 I think we're a little bit high. Okay, Lou Reed's a good spot for me to get on a soapbox with. Lou Reed is interesting and he does a very artistic thing. I think he's an absolutely terrible singer. Not to be mean to him, but he's weird. I mean, he does a thing that some people are really into, but it's just like, he's not a singer, man. Like, what is this? And this brings up a good point of a lot of the people on here are on this list for their influence, how iconic they are, were they innovative with what they did, that completely regardless of their talent, you know? And so you end up with weird people all over the place on this list that should be ordered differently just on the basis of that, or people that should probably even be here because they're not really known for singing. So it's like, why are they there? I don't know. Putting him at 107 is weird and stupid to me. Like, if you want him on it, fine, but go put him down there with where Glenn Danzig was. Like, why is he at 107? And I don't get this. It's like the actual talent is, I think, is a little too undervalued here versus what the person did. Now, was Lou Reed that successful? No. So it's hard for me to feel like, why is he here? I think it's just because he did something so out there that he's just put on here because, oh, if you're doing something really out there, you must be the best or something. I don't know. But I don't know. Like, again, Bill Withers is not impressive. He's better than Lou Reed, obviously. But, like, he's not really that impressive. His voice is very nice and people like it. He's got a really great tone. But 106 is too high. But he's here because he had songs that were really popular, you know? And he sang them his way very well. Is that enough for a 106 on a top 200 singers? Probably not. Eddie Vedder is on here. That's fair, I guess, because Pearl Jam is one of the best-selling artists of all time with, what is it? The last time I checked, 125 million records sold, or equivalent, as they would say these days with streaming and things like that. But good Lord, ooh, the way he sings sometimes gets on your nerves really bad. Too much R sounds and doing weird things with his vowels, diphthongs and things like that. And then Scott Stapp made it even worse. But is he overall that impressive? I mean, not really. 105 is ridiculous. I wouldn't put him this high. I consider maybe not putting him on here because I don't know if I like the message it's sending, but it's literally saying Pearl Jam's uber successful, put Eddie on here. That's kind of all this is, I think. Mostly. He shouldn't be at 105. Leonard Cohen is a good writer. Why is he on here? That's all I'm going to say. Like, it's not he doesn't have an impressive voice. You know, it's just the quality and the tone of it that gets people, and that's cool, and that's a different kind of natural thing, and I guess it's not the same thing to me as talent, because your voice sounds how it sounds when you're born, you know. It obviously changes a bit when it changes a lot when you know, grow out of your teenage years and become an adult, but after that, you got what you got, and he happened to get something really interesting. But 103, no. Taylor Swift, 102, no. Again, I don't care how successful a pop artist she is. Her voice isn't the most interesting. There's so many other pop singers that are way more interesting than her and can do a lot of other technical things. She is a great writer, and that is what I'll give her. But as a singer, I don't think we should be putting her at 102. I mean, Chuck is on here for being an early rock guy, but I mean, his guitar playing, I think, is what he's better known for than his singing. So this is kind of odd for me for him to be 96 on a singer's list. He's probably on their guitar. He's higher than that on their guitar list, I think. I don't know where they put him on it. I don't remember. But he is on that too. But a 96 on the singer's list, Michael's only at 86, and this is a crime against humanity. It's Michael Jackson. It is the king of pop. The king of pop. There are pop singers ahead of him. What is going on? I mean, I haven't seen the rest, but it's like 86. There are other pop singers ahead of him. There's a lot they've put ahead of him. How can they do this? How do you justify putting Michael Jackson at 86? Johnny Cash is ahead of him. And I guess we get a little bit grounded with Steve Perry. He's cool. I mean, people talked about, I mean, his range is cool. I mean, it's pretty good, but he is a tenor. I don't remember. I think he is. So I'm not as impressed with his voice as some people might be, but 82 is a fair spot for him, I think. And this is where we suffer very poorly with Chris being at 80. I've never been so offended by, no, I'm kidding. But there is something particular with his voice that you cannot ignore, and it cuts right through your body. And they put him at 80, and I don't like it. He's an incredible songwriter, incredible singer. His range is 4 octaves. It says nearly 4 octaves. Bullshit, it is. He can hit low D to, you know, whatever. What is the highest note I've heard him do? An F sharp, I think. 5. I think he's done a G before in something. I don't remember for sure, but it's like a huge range. Lots of power. Lots of dynamics. He can do all kinds of things. If you just go through, like, if you listen to, in this order, listen to Bad Motor Finger, then go to his solo album with Euphoria Morning, go to Audio Slave stuff, or listen to Temple of the Dog at so much, or at some point, and then do like Carry On and Higher Truth. If you just listen to those albums, that is such a ridiculous range of different styles that it's completely nuts. I am convinced there is not another person, this could be exaggeration, but I don't know, I've never heard anybody that has that much range throughout their career and their style, and it's pretty nuts. And in terms of rock singer, he is in the top 3 best rock singers ever, in my opinion. Is he ahead of Fred? I'm not willing to go that far necessarily. We'll get to Freddie, so stay tuned for that one. But he shouldn't be 80. He should be higher than that. This man is at least top 40. Okay, it's been a while since we've said anything here because we get to a point where most of the singers are fine where they are at this point because we're getting so high. There's not a whole lot to talk about. There's something to talk about here with Mick Jagger. I think Mick's voice is too polarizing for you to put him this high. It's like people either really like his voice or they hate it. And is he a good singer? I mean, on the recordings and stuff, his pitch is good. I'll give him that. But he does kind of the same thing all the time. You know, I don't think he's that good of a singer. It's just opens his mouth real big and, you know, bleh. And he goes for it. That's part of why people are deceived by him, is because he's so confident with everything he does that you assume he's just really good. And I don't feel that way. Do I think he shouldn't be on here? I mean, based on their criteria for how they've incorporated other things besides vocal talent in this, he probably should be on this list, but at 52, it's extremely high. And he probably shouldn't even be in the top 100 as far as I'm concerned. Ariana, I feel super weird, honestly, to have at 43. She hadn't been around long enough for you to give her this number. She has not been around long enough. And she is super technically talented, but it's like, I mean, she doesn't move you. She's not a deeply emotional singer. She is so technical that it's sometimes boring because you expect her to do the things she does, and she's so spot on all the time, it's not interesting. So I'm like, 43, when you have all these other people that can do all these cool dynamic things, why is she all the way up there, man? And Kurt at 36 is too high. That's it. Like, you can't put him ahead of Chris Cornell. That's all I'm going to say. That's really all I'm going to say. You shouldn't do that. he is on here because they blew up, and that's it. Does he do anything more impressive than Chris did? No. I mean, Chris did plumbing. I mean, people want to talk about how his voice can like grab you, and then it's like, okay, but there's plenty of other singers here that do that, and Chris Cornell can do that. So why is he so far ahead of him? Like, Kurt didn't innovate as much as people want to call him a genius. There were bands that had been doing it already. Like, Nirvana started in 1987. Other people had been around already. Other people had come out with albums before they dropped Nevermind. So it's like, what is so special here that could put him that much further ahead of his contemporaries? Paul McCartney's on here because he's in the Beatles. That's it. As far as I have to think that that's probably the only reason why he's so high on here, is because he was in the Beatles. That's fine. The Beatles are great. Iconic band, obviously. But Paul and John also, neither of them were really that, they weren't that incredible as singers. So 26 is stop. You know, Frank is a super character thing, and I mean, we've kind of talked about like some character singers already on this list. I mean, if you're gonna put one in the top 20 that's a character and a stylistic singer, you know, he's the one you would probably do that with, because it's Frank Sinatra, you know? So, do I think he's an impressive singer? No. But I'm not gonna complain about him being in the top 20. Although if I was doing it, he wouldn't be. Again, Bob Dylan comes to that, but he's so iconic for his songwriting that he's gotten the nod on here at 15. I think this is too high. And I mean, his voice can be really off-putting to people. I mean, would I go out of my way to listen to Bob Dylan? No, I would not. But I mean, I try to come from an aspect of not hating a singer just because their voice is weird or different, or even if they're not that good, you know? But I think we have to be practical when we're talking a 200 singers list. If we're up in the top here, and the top 20, like this especially, you better be damn good, you know? And is Bob Dylan damn good as a singer? No. And that's it. Should he be on the list? Probably. Should he be 15? No. And again, we talked about Fred. There he is, 14. I guess if you're going to be one of the best rock singers, 14 is not a bad spot for how these things usually go with rock singers. Although, again, Chris and Ronnie James Dio got screwed big time on this list. And Rob Halford did a little bit, but not as much. So I guess this is fine for me. And again, John Lennon, stop, go away, please. You shouldn't be here. He just shouldn't be here. And then, I mean, this is small victory. We got Chris Cornell's main inspiration as a singer in the top 20 at number 11, Little Richard. That this is the proper thing, because he was like, it said proto-punk screen. He was like the proto rock singer, even though he wasn't in that wasn't his genre, obviously. But a lot of the stuff he did influenced a lot of rock singers later. And he's probably the big reason why Robert Plant is Robert Plant, you know. And then, of course, go down the list of other singers of that style. And then Chris Cornell influenced number 2. It all comes back to Chris for me, doesn't it? And there's Stevie. Hey, man. God, there is this. If you want to talk about a musical genius, this is one. Forget what anybody wants to pretend to say about Kurt Cobain. This Stevie Wonder is the musical genius on this list. Just period. The guy had incredible pitch. He could play a bunch of instruments like it was nothing. He could play anything in seconds after touching it, you know? It's just like, he's just so incredible. His ear is so damn good. Like, there's not another person with an ear like him on this list. And then I guess for the top ones here, we'll scroll through them. I'm not going to have much to say probably, because most of these are going to be right. Yeah, Mariah Carey is ridiculous, man. Okay, fine. It's cool. Billie Holiday, old school stuff. I haven't listened to a lot of the older singers on here, so I kind of have to just go with the intuition of the list here and kind of just leave it alone because I am not qualified to comment on that. That's good. That's good. Yep, Whitney Houston. And then, of course, everyone knows who number one is. Duh. It's always Aretha Franklin, man. And there's nothing to complain about with that. You know, that's it. Speaks for itself. All right. Anyway, guys, since we're at, let's go back to the top real quick and talk for a second about my own opinions on this. The list is okay. Like, there's too many singers that whose influence and other superficial things like that outside of their singing ability and singing talent are either they shouldn't be on or on here when they shouldn't be because of that, or put in the wrong place. And there's also super inconsistent with it because you'll have one singer that's on there for that reason, but then you'll have another singer that's on in a more appropriate place because of their talent, but they weren't that influential or innovative. So it's like they keep on contradicting themselves in a lot of spots on the list. Now, as far as my own rock sensibilities in the particular areas I like, we saw, you know, some 90s singers. We saw Courtney Love. We saw Eddie. We saw Chris. We saw Kurt. Lane Staley's not on this list. That's a problem, man. If you're going to put Kurt Cobain and Eddie on here, he has to be there, man. He's better than both of them. Why is he not on there? He was probably the most unique singer of the night. I mean, Kurt was pretty unique. But, I mean, Lane was like on another planet with what he was doing. And I don't mean another planet talent-wise. I just mean he's just out there, man. He had such a different voice because he had that really brass top into his voice. He could have the super low grit. The really cool vibrato thing he does at the end of his notes is really awesome. Super emotional singer. You know, could make you feel things. He was really good about translating a lot of negative emotions into his singing, which can be pretty difficult to translate the ideas of some of the songs that they had into the lyrics and the vocal delivery, and he did it every time. He was really powerful. He was one of the best live singers I've ever heard. You know, honestly, better live singer than all the three other big grunge singers we had on here. He's a better live singer than all of them. And he's just not here. I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. He had the shortest career. No, he didn't. Kurt did, obviously. What am I saying? Idiot. Yeah, he didn't have the longest career, but I mean, it was so good. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to put into words what I feel about Lane. You kind of just have to listen to him sing to get it. Listen to the stuff he did as with Mad Season, super bluesy, cool stuff. Obviously, listen to all Alice in Chains things and how his voice evolves and how he can sing on like folky Americana stuff, which they didn't have a ton of things with that kind of style, but there were some songs like that. Do full on metal stuff, do, you know, their usual grunge style things. He does, I mean, he just could sing. I mean, there was just a lot he could sing in a lot of different ways. And he was always really good at making you feel something, whether or not you wanted to. He was going to make you feel it. And then, of course, Mike Patton's not on here, which is terrible because I don't know if there is more vocal range and dynamicism in one person than there is in that guy. I mean, he's done, you know, regular rock, metal, jazz. There are songs he raps on. His range is completely nuts. He's probably got the most range of any American singer on here, which I say that because Dimash Kudaibergen, if you've ever heard him, his range is completely insane for a male vocalist. And Mike doesn't quite get there because he's not as proficient with whistle tones, but he can do whistle tones. And then a lot of other things stylistically that are just so far out there that it's like, what is going, and you don't know what's going on. He's the type of singer like that. Like, of course, Faith No More, they had some really great songs. Mr. Bungle is just the weirdest thing ever. And it's cool. And he's not even on here. So you know, kind of an L with those two at least. I mean, those were the only two I really wanted to spend time talking about right now. If there's somebody else that got missed, then, you know, obviously let me know if there's somebody else you think should be included on here. Anyway, I think that's going to do it here for today. There's going to be a lot of footage cut down for this anyway. Hope you guys enjoyed this look at the Rolling Stone 200 Greatest Singers. Like and subscribe if you did. Don't forget to click the notification bell to know when the new video is out. And I will see you guys next time for another video. Have a good one.